Across a wide golden prairie where tall grasses swayed like waves in the wind, there lived a great buffalo named Boro. Boro was one of the largest animals on the plains. His shoulders were strong, horns were wide, and his heavy steps could be heard long before he appeared over the hill. Yet despite his great size and strength, Boro was known for something very unusual. He never raised his voice. While other animals shouted across the prairie, argued loudly, or stomped angrily when things did not go their way, Boro remained calm and quiet. If two animals were arguing, Boro would simply listen. If someone was angry, Boro would speak slowly and gently. And if someone tried to start trouble, Boro would look at them with calm eyes and say only a few peaceful words. At first, many animals did not understand him. One bright morning, a young coyote named Kiro raced across the prairie chasing a jackrabbit. He leaped over rocks, darted through the grass, and nearly crashed into Boro, who was quietly grazing nearby. "Watch where you're standing," Kiro barked loudly. Boro lifted his head slowly and looked at the young coyote. "I am standing where the grass grows," Boro said calmly. Kiro flicked his tail and frowned. "Well, you're in the way," he snapped. The jackrabbit had already escaped far into the grass, but Kiro was still upset. He paced back and forth and kicked at the dirt. "You made me lose my lunch," he complained. Boro did not shout back. He did not stomp. He simply said, "The prairie is wide. There will be other rabbits." Kiro waited for an argument. He expected Boro to defend himself loudly like many other animals would. But Boro returned to grazing peacefully. The young coyote felt a little confused. Later that day, Kiro and Hawk began arguing loudly near their burrow. They were shouting about whose turn it was to watch for danger. "You watched yesterday," one shouted. "No, I didn't," the other replied. "Yes, you did." "No, I didn't." Their voices grew louder and louder until several animals began to gather nearby. Boro walked slowly toward them. Kiro and Hawk turned to Boro and expected him to shout at them to be quiet. But Boro spoke gently. "Both of you care about protecting your family," he said. Kiro and Hawk stopped arguing for a moment. "Yes," one said. "Of course we do," said the other. "Then you already agree on the most important thing," Boro replied. Kiro and Hawk looked at each other. Their voices grew quieter. Within a few moments, they calmly decided to take turns again. Many animals on the prairie began noticing something interesting. Whenever Boro spoke calmly, the noise around him seemed to settle like dust after the wind. One sunny day, a group of young wolves began chasing each other roughly near the watering hole. Their play soon turned into a fierce argument over who had found the water first. Growls filled the air. One wolf snapped his teeth. Another wolf barked angrily. The younger animals watching nearby became nervous. Boro walked slowly to the edge of the water. He did not shout. He did not charge. He simply stood quietly until the wolves noticed him. "You are big," one of the wolves said sharply. "But this is none of your business." Boro nodded calmly. "You are right," he said. "The water belongs to no one." The wolves paused. They had expected anger. Instead, they heard calm. Boro continued speaking slowly. "The prairie gives water to every animal who needs it." The wolves looked down at the water and then back at one another. The growling stopped. One by one, they stepped back and drank peacefully. Far above them, an old hawk had been watching from the sky. The hawk circled down and landed on a nearby rock. "Boro," the hawk said, "why do you never shout like the others?" Boro looked across the wide prairie where the sun was beginning to set. "When voices rise," Boro said quietly, "ears often close." The hawk tilted his head. "But when someone speaks calmly," Boro continued, "others begin to listen." The hawk nodded slowly. Days turned into weeks, and the seasons moved gently across the prairie. More animals began to notice Boro's quiet strength. They saw that he did not need loud words to be heard. They saw that he did not need anger to solve problems. One afternoon, a fierce windstorm swept across the prairie. The sky filled with dust, and the grasses bent low under the strong wind. Animals rushed in every direction trying to find shelter. The young coyote Kiro ran in circles shouting, "Where should we go? Where should we go?" The prairie dogs squeaked nervously. Even the wolves looked unsure, but Boro stood calmly, facing the wind. "Follow me," he said quietly. The animals gathered around him and followed as he walked toward a low valley surrounded by thick grass and strong stones. There the wind could not reach them so fiercely. The animals settled safely while the storm roared across the prairie above them. Kiro looked up at Boro and said softly, "You didn't shout, but everyone still followed you." Boro smiled gently. "Sometimes calm voices travel farther than loud ones," he said. The storm eventually passed, and the prairie returned to its peaceful rhythm. The grasses stood tall again. Birds returned to the sky. The animals wandered back to their homes, but something had changed. They remembered the buffalo who never raised his voice. They remembered how his calm words helped arguments fade. They remembered how his quiet strength guided them during the storm. And from that day forward, many animals tried something new when trouble appeared. Instead of shouting louder, they tried speaking calmer, because they had learned something important from the great buffalo on the prairie. True strength is not always loud. Sometimes the strongest voice of all is the one that stays calm.